Oh, really quick before we get started, by the way, I just want to say I finally started watching Amphibia with Vermin because, like, people in my community recommended it. And, like, early on, Amphibia is so unbearably juvenile that it's really difficult to get through. It reminds me of how I felt when I tried watching My Little Pony. But so far, there's been, like, one episode with a glimmer of, like, real potential in there, which is when you first see the toads. Please tell me you finished season 2. No! I'm halfway through season 1. Hold it, hold it. Just, yeah, I'm working into it. It's just, wow, the show starts out, like, really, really, really... I want to hear more about Amphibia. I don't spoil me for Amphibia. I'm like 10 episodes into the first season. It's new, you know? There are some things that I like about the show, but a lot of it feels real juvenile, but then there was a bit of it that I really did like, you know? I don't know. I like animation as a medium. Hopefully, it continues to get better and more involved. I know that the show goes way off the rails at some point, because I saw a picture... I won't say it in case I spoil any of you, but, you know, I saw a picture and it looked like the power level escalated slightly from the start of the show. I'll say that much. Yeah, they turned into a pickle. Don't say anything. Okay, you know how right now isekai shows are really common in, like, Disney and Cartoon Network? Like, it's really common for a premise to be, like, a human from roughly our time goes into, like, a magical world. That's, like, a really common thing right now, you know? I think it would be way more interesting. Well, not more, but I think it'd be interesting to explore a premise where it's the opposite. It's isekai for the person from the fantasy world, but don't really treat it like a joke, you know? So in Star versus the Forces of Evil, right? Like, basically, like, Star comes over to... No. Star doesn't do it right, okay? Because all the interesting stuff happens in Star's world. The interesting... like, the only stuff that happens on Earth in Star versus the Force of Evil is, like, slice-of-life stuff, okay? But all the interesting plot shit happens in the magic world, you know? And that's a big difference. But, like, imagine a different Star versus the Forces of Evil, where, sure, some stuff is done in, like, the magic world, but the real shit is when, like, the real world gets involved. This is kind of like what happened with Steven Universe 2. Steven Universe isn't an isekai, but most of the interesting stuff in Steven Universe has to do with the gem world, not the Earth world. The Earth world is just a setting for slice-of-life episodes, you know? For sitcom stuff. Not to say nothing meaningful happens there, but it's usually just a backdrop. The interesting world development is always on the gem side, not the human side. There is no involvement of, or mention, really, of US, like, the United States governments, the Earth developing, you know? Like, that stuff doesn't really happen. At no point does, like, the US government get involved or something. Like, all the interesting stuff is, like, the gem world, you know? And I feel like the isekai character from the other world would have to be the protagonist as well. How fucking... Okay, imagine it's a show, okay? Imagine it's a show where, like, you start in a fantasy magical world, okay? And it's like, I don't know, let's just say it's Japanese inspired. Why not? Let's say there's, like, a samurai kid or whatever. Like, they're 13 years old, they have a sword, they live in a difficult world, you know, there's rice farms, but, like, there's also dragons, like, fucking whatever, okay? And some magic bullshit happens, and they end up on Earth. And the samurai kid is the protagonist, with the Earth-like kid they meet, of course, because it's always like that, becomes the secondary protagonist, and of course, you know, you meet more characters out from there. But normally what would happen there is that all the interesting stuff would happen when the human on Earth goes over to the fantasy world and gets embroiled and becomes a big part of that world. This is what happened in Star vs. the Force of Evil, okay? But imagine instead if the arrival of this alt-world kid kind of heralds the destruction of Earth, you know? Like, most of the interesting stuff isn't the magic on the other world, it's the magic infiltrating the real world. There are shows like this? No, but it always stays slice of life. It's all Danny Phantom shit, you know? Oh yeah, it all stays on Earth and, like, he has to catch the ghosts. No, I'm talking about developments on Earth that are as extensive as the developments they make to the fantasy world, you know? Like, make it actually cool. So Superman? No! Shut up! Stop! Think for a second! Think for a goddamn second! Holy fuck! Jesus Christ! A story where the plot is about our world reacting to infiltration by the fantasy world. Now, I know about the anime Gate, which is what I'm talking about. There's one slight problem. Gate is retarded. It's bad, it sucks, it's stupid, it's terrible, it was a bad show, it was terrible, it was horrible, everything about it sucked, it's universally bad. I have nothing to say about how it's bad, because it's entirely bad. Every element of Gate was incompetently or malicious. I don't even think it's incompetence. I think the people who made Gate were malicious. Okay? I think they deliberately set out to create a bad product because nothing else explains the outcome of that fucking despicable show. Okay? Jesus. Gate is literally just like I'm not even. It's not even worth talking about. Look, do something. Okay, I've got it. I need to pee though. Okay. What was I saying? I forget. Reverse isekai takes? Okay. Just imagine this, okay? Just imagine this, okay? Imagine that you've got a plucky, self-serious, very determined kid who wants to live up to the expectations of his demanding father, who's a village chieftain, who lives in a fantasy world where a common expectation of people is to defend farms from, like, marauding bands of giant boars or dragons or some shit or whatever, okay? Some magic bullshit happens due to a contrivance, and he ends up going to the human world, okay? But not just him. Also, other stuff from his world gets in and escapes a bit, okay? And the issue is that nobody in their world, nobody on Earth, is capable of fighting these off because we don't have any understanding of magic. So what happens is, obviously, like, befriends local human or whatever, like that kind of stuff. And the progress, like the plot progress, it starts out with like the standard sitcom-y, like, enemy of the week type episode where, like, oh yeah, this thing came through the portal, I have to defeat it because your people can't, we have to save them, you know? But that's the beginning, and as time goes on, you get more and more plot developments, and the major developments happen on Earth, not in the other world. So, like, you'll have a season finale where something big enough gets through that it actually, like, carves out a section of the town, and, like, the local city has to evacuate. And, like, there's this dawning realization that the existence of this kid here isn't some, like, cute isekai thing, but that there's an active threat to the planet that he's currently the only one involved in defending against. And the show, like, alternates between time spent in the other world and in our world, because in the other world, humans, like the human family that this kid got pseudo-adopted by, they're trying to find, like, other people to help defend their world or close the portal or anything like that, and the kid's trying to live up to those expectations, but the more shit goes through the portal and ruins the fucking Earth world, the more the government gets involved. And I don't think this is, like, too much to ask for from, like, a Y7 TV show or whatever, like Star vs. the Force of Evil, Gravity Falls or whatever. I think it's totally in line or whatever, you know? Where, like, the government tries to get more involved, but it's really difficult for them to do anything because magic is just not something we're capable of handling, you know? And I feel like you could really build out a great story where the threat becomes more meaningful and more... Like, it just bothers me a little bit that you'll have these giant isekai story arcs, and the end of it is like, oh yeah, and then you return back home to your unaffected world. They changed that up in Star vs. the Force of Evil in a really, really contrived ending where they just merged the two worlds, which is really dangerous, you know? You people are trying to trigger me, but I'm with the monastic piece, I've accepted you're all fucking retards, so I know that you're just trying to trigger me by saying random shit. Is Samurai Jack partly an isekai? Samurai Jack is an isekai from one world we're not in to another world we're not in, which is really cool, actually. It's pretty unique, actually, to have an isekai that's between two worlds that aren't the one that we live in. Yes, I've watched The Owl House. Anyway, do you have any idea what I'm talking about here? I guess the main issue that I have is I feel like the general arc of these shows is you usually have a human protagonist on Earth who turns into a plucky adventurer and gets stronger in this fantasy world, right? But I'm kind of bored of that, you know? I would much prefer a story of, like, how much cooler they are, inspiring people on Earth to be better or stronger, or maybe making them worse. Maybe a recurring theme of the story can be that Earth is getting worse for its contact with this place. Not only do you have to evacuate cities and there's, like, new threats and everything, but humans are becoming more and more paranoid, you know, xenophobic. They refuse help from people from the other world because they don't trust them. They're, like, categorically distrustful of magic because they you know, they consider it to be like a, you know, aberrant or unnatural or whatever. And then, like, You get more of that, and I don't know, I feel like you could get something really interesting there. And I feel like you would be setting up, like, potentially a really interesting arc that involves the politics of both worlds in a fashion that isn't normally done. Something like, you know, genuinely deconstructive. You people are infuriating. I know why this isn't normally done, by the way, and it's because it's way easier to have super big changes done in a fantasy world, in a cartoon, than it is to do on the real world, because in the real world, we're familiar with how complicated things are, and it would never make sense. Like, in fantasy worlds, it can be like, finding the king's scepter has reunited the people, whereas, can you imagine a reverse, where it's like the fantasy person isekais into Cold War era, like, Earth, and they're like, yes, finding the Sputnik satellite remains has united the USSR and NATO. The war is over, and then it's like fucking Khrushchev and Reagan like do a hug and like give a speech against some shit, and we'd be like, okay, all right, you know, shit like that only works. That'd be dope though, but well, it doesn't really pass disbelief. Birthright comic book? Oh, I was thinking animation though. I can look at it. What about an ultra realistic sky? Well, I'm mostly talking about what you could get away with for Y7 cartoons. Oh boy, I just like stories that are interesting. Okay, new idea. Isekai? Okay, new idea, alright? Isekai, except the protagonist of the isekai, the kid that goes to the other world, is haughty and imperious. The way, like, a human might actually be in those circumstances. Like, really think for a second. The premise of Amphibia is that a human warps to a world where, like, the main people are frogs, and she's twice the height of everyone. Like, I feel like a lot of humans would immediately try to, like, exploit the knowledge they have to try to, like, defend themselves. Stop! Consume! Shut the fuck up! I feel like, I don't know. I feel like, wouldn't it be interesting if like, colonization was a recurring concept in there? Because, like, so often the kid is just so hyped to be in the alternate universe, but what if that wasn't the case? You know? I don't know. You just suggested the plot of the Isekai cell phone anime. I like it when I keep, like, saying concepts, and you guys are like, hey, did you know... You know that the thing that you're referring to has been vaguely done by this, the worst anime to have ever been created? Isekai, but the protag plays Paradox games? Oh, fuck! They arrive in the alt universe or whatever. They see a bunch of, like, smaller creatures that are asking them if they need help. Their brain flashes back to, like, maximizing values to ensure that the two kingdoms have an incest baby, so it's more likely to die, so that the Count Vizier gets the post that they look for. So it, like, flashes back to the where they are right then. They're, like, instantly begin, like, the conquistador colonization of the fucking... You watch Slice of Life anime? Not generally. Okay, we're, like, talking way too long. Are we doing this debate or not? Whatever. There are two isekais in the same season with that premise. Okay, here's the problem. Anime is terrible. The quality of writing in your average anime show isn't high enough to pass a fucking 5th grade, like, English essay when translated. It sucks. And it's not just translation either. It's that anime sucks, okay? Anime is a retard medium with retard fans that are all pedophiles, and they exclusively get off to fucking... What's the term for good animation? What's that term? What's that horrible term that they invented? What is it? What is it? What is it? Sakuga. All they do is... all they live for is finding the 2-second stretches of good animation that they get once every season, because the entire medium is so strung out on a budget where the only way these shows make back their money is by selling Blu-rays for $500 a pop to pedophile fans who want the steam removed from episode 7 when the 14-year-old cleric gets into the hot baths with everyone else. That's the genre. That's the whole fucking... People say anime is a medium, not a genre. Fuck you. It's a genre. Shut the fuck... Anime is a goddamn genre. It's just a genre that has a lot of subcategories, okay? Because holy shit, is there a fucking problem? I'm not... No. What's your least anime that's so good? There are so many good anime, but those aren't actual anime, okay? Because I like them. Anime is ontologically bad, so when I like anime, it's not anime.